I'm the book lady, and we have a very special episode, and I brought a very special friend. And you may remember Mr. Kaplan, Saul Kaplan, from our Hanukkah episode. Well, today we're talking about a very important holiday in the Jewish faith called Passover. And I sent an email to Mr. Kaplan, and I told him I wanted him to explain a little bit about Passover. And here's the bottom line. We would be here for, a half a day if we really wanted to get into it. But we're just going to give you a little snapshot so that you understand what we're talking about. Things like Matzo Ball. This is the Matzo Ball Boy. It's a funny book. You're going to like this one. But what's Matzo Ball? What's matzah? And then we have Stone Soup with Matzoh Balls. Another great story. But it uses terms that you might not be familiar with. So, can you tell me a little bit about Passover?
Sure. Passover is a Jewish holiday. It always falls in the spring, right around the same time as Easter.
Okay.
The two holidays almost always overlap. And it is the story of the Jewish people, actually the Hebrew people, they were not Jews quite yet, coming out of slavery in Egypt, leaving Egypt, crossing the Red Sea, going into the desert, and where they wandered their 40 years in the desert, received the 10 Commandments, and actually became, during that time, melded into the Jewish people. It is a celebration of moving from slavery and bondage into freedom, which is, I think, something everybody can celebrate at some point in their life when they move into a time in their life where they feel free. Whether it's graduating from school, whether it's just moving out, whether it's any other kind of, I don't want to say bondage, but any time in your life where suddenly you have achieved a certain freedom. It's something we can all relate to. And that is what the holiday of Passover is about.
Well, I'm going to ask you,
your freedom.
What's the significance of matzah? What is matzah? I know we eat it.
Matzah is kind of like a cracker. It is a bread product, but it doesn't have any yeast. It's nothing that makes it rise. The regular bread that you see is kind of fluffy because it has something in it called yeast. Traditionally, they say when the Hebrew people had to leave Egypt, they had to do it so quickly that there was no time to allow the bread to rise, the yeast to rise, and so they had this unleavened bread, this matzah. And so to commemorate that, for a week, we don't eat any bread products that have any kind of yeast in it, any kind of we don't eat bread, we don't eat rolls, we don't eat hamburger buns. You know, we go to McDonald's, we throw the buns away and we stuff the Big Macs in our mouths without any of the buns. It's very sloppy.
So a matzo ball must be
take the matzah,
kind of a bready ball that they've made, but they made it with matzah crackers and probably some egg or
ground up, into a flour and a little egg, and you make them into little balls, little dumplings, kind of like, and you drop
put them in
your
your soup,
in the chicken soup, and that's
well.
Probably.
Let's read about Matzo Ball Boy.
Matzo Ball Boy.
This is funny. It's by Lisa.
Nobody wants to grow up with.
This is by Lisa Shulman, and it's kind of a funny book. I hope you enjoy it. Once upon a time, there was an old grandmother, a bubby, who lived all alone. She lived in a tiny cottage at the end of a small village in a far-off country whose name sounded like a sneeze. Her children were grown with children of their own, but could they be bothered to visit their mother? Not that she was complaining, but she couldn't help feeling lonely. Soon Passover would be here, and there was no one to come to her Seder. That's the holiday dinner. No one to help retell the Passover story. No one to eat her sweet apple and walnut harisset and sip her delicious matzo ball soup. So, the morning of Passover, the bubby decided to make herself a matzo ball boy. A friendly face in her soup was better than nothing, she thought. She mixed matzah meal with eggs, oil, salt, and water. And from the dough, she shaped a soft little body and a round matzo ball head. She gave him a carrot sliced nose, a curving celery mouth, and a peppercorn eyes and buttons. Then she plopped him in a pot of chicken soup to cook. Soon the most delicious smells wafted from the bubbling pot. Wafted means kind of spread out so that everyone could smell it. When the old woman lifted the lid to see if the matzo ball boy was done, out he jumped. "Oi! And where do you think you're going, my little matzo ball boy?" The matzo ball boy puffed out his soft little chest. "Boy schmoy, I'm the matzo ball man, Bubby, and I'm off to see the world." Then he ran out the door, leaving smears of schmaltz, that's chicken fat, on her freshly mopped kitchen floor. Not that she minded a little work, but would it have hurt him to wipe his feet? "Wait, wait," the old woman cried, running after him. "Put on a jacket or you'll catch your death of cold." But the matzo ball boy just laughed and kept on running. He called back over his shoulder, "Run, run as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the matzo ball man." The old bubby ran as fast as she could, but she couldn't catch him. The matzo ball boy ran on and on through the village. As he passed the tailor shop, the Schneider, that's the tailor, he sews, put the last stitch in the rabbi's good coat, which he was patching for Passover. Then he rubbed his stomach. "Oi, oi, you look good enough to eat, little matzo ball boy." But the matzo ball boy just laughed and kept on running. He called back over his shoulder, "I've run away from my bubby and I can run away from you. So run, run as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the matzo ball man." The Schneider and the old bubby ran as fast as they could, but they couldn't catch him. The matzo ball boy ran on and on. Soon he passed the Yenta, the village gossip, and her 10 children, coming home from the market with apples, nuts, and bitter herbs for their Seder. Remember, that's the holiday feast. The Yenta dropped her basket and cried, "Oi, oi, you look good enough to eat, little matzo ball boy." But the matzo ball boy just laughed and kept on running. He called back over his shoulder, "I've run away from my bubby and the Schneider, and I can run away from you too." And then, just to show off, he repeated, "Run, run as fast as you can," 11 times. Once for each of the children and once more for the Yenta herself. The Yenta, her children, and the Schneider and the old bubby ran as fast as they could, but they could not catch the matzo ball boy. Then the matzo ball boy ran faster than ever. It wasn't long before he came to the rabbi on his way to synagogue. Synagogue is where they go to worship. The rabbi licked his lips and said, "Oi, oi, you look good enough to eat, little matzo ball boy." But the matzo ball boy just laughed and kept on running. He called back over his shoulder, "I've run away from my bubby, the Schneider, the Yenta, and her children, and I can run away from you too. So, run, run as fast as you can. You can't catch me. I'm the matzo ball man." The rabbi, the Yenta, and her children, the Schneider, and the old bubby ran as fast as they could, but they couldn't catch him. The matzo ball boy ran on and on until he came to the edge of a wide river. He could hear the others behind him getting closer and closer. Oh boy. So now I have to cross a river too? I'll never see the world at this rate. "If you care to climb on my back, I'll take you across," said a very smooth voice, as smooth as schmaltz. The matzo ball boy turned to find a hungry fox grinning at him. "Ha! You must think I'm a real schmeal. Do you think I don't know that old trick? First you get me on your back, then on your head, then on your nose, and then I'm nothing more than a nosh to you." Pfft. A nosh is a snack. The fox smiled a toothy grin. I can hear the others even closer now. Do you plan to wait here for them? Not on your life, boy chick, the matzo ball boy laughed. For someone who came from a pot of hot soup, this river will be a refreshing change. I'm not made of gingerbread, you know. Me, I'm going for a swim. And with that, the matzo ball boy jumped into the river and began swimming across. The fox jumped in too, but after only a few strokes, he saw he would never catch up with the quick little matzo ball boy. He turned back, grumbling about cold food. When the matzo ball boy reached the far shore, he looked back and saw the dripping fox, the rabbi, the yenta and her children, the Schneider, and the old bubby standing on the other side calling, Oi, oi, come back, little matzo ball boy. But the matzo ball boy just laughed. Swim, swim as fast as you can. You can't catch me, I'm the matzo ball man. And since none of the others could swim, except for the fox, who pretended he no longer cared, they turned away and began the long walk back to town. The old bubby was the last to leave. So go, have a good time. Not that I'm complaining, but is this the thanks I get for bringing you up from a bit of dough? The matzo ball boy watched them go and then, having nothing better to do, set off through the forest that lined the river's edge. It began to grow dark and cold, and soon the hungry and tired matzo ball boy felt he could not walk any further. Just then, he came upon a poor man dressed in rags. The matzo ball boy was about to run away when the man said kindly, Oi, you need something good to eat, little matzo ball boy. The matzo ball boy nodded tiredly. I've run away from my bubby, the Schneider and the yenta and her children, the rabbi and a fox, and I could run away from you too if I wanted. Of course, I wouldn't refuse an offer of a good meal and a soft bed. The matzo ball boy looked expectantly at the man. No one should be alone and hungry on Passover, said the man. Come home with me. Our food is simple and our cottage is small, but you are welcome to join our meal. So the matzo ball boy followed the poor man through the forest until they came to a tiny cottage, hardly bigger than a shack. Candlelight glowed warmly from the windows, and a fire crackled cheerfully in the grate. The man's wife sat by the fire stirring a big pot of soup. The most delicious smell wafted from the pot, reminding the matzo ball boy of something, though he couldn't think what. Welcome, said the woman with a smile. Come in, said the man. The matzo ball boy took a step inside. Don't just stand by the door where it's cold. Come nearer to the fire and warm yourself. He held his hands out to the dancing flames and sighed in contentment. The matzo ball boy grew closer to the fire. Its heat made him feel relaxed and drowsy. The soup will be ready soon, said the woman. She tasted a spoonful, then shook her head. It seems a bit thin tonight. I can't tell what else it needs. Can you? She held out the spoon to the matzo ball boy, who took it and leaned over the pot to scoop up a taste. And then, well, who's to say what happened? Perhaps he fell in. Perhaps he was pushed. All we know is that the poor man and the hungry wife had a delicious meal of matzo ball soup that night. You were expecting a different ending. Did you like that book?
That was. I kept wondering, what does a matzo ball boy eat when he says he's hungry? What would he eat? What would he eat?
So I just thought it was a funny book, and Matzo Ball Boy thought and you notice Matzo Ball Boy always referred to himself as Matzo Ball Man. And he was going to go out and see the world, and he thought he was all that. Well,
well, that's because it rhymes with can. This is very similar to another story, I think, that we're...
Yes, this is a great story. It's by Linda Glaser, and I'll tell you something. And Saul, Mr. Kaplan, my friend, was telling me that there have been several variations of this story, and the town of Chelm.
Right, the town of Chelm is very popular in Jewish folklore. There are a number of stories that all take place in the town of Chelm, which is a famous town of fools. Mm-hmm. The people of Chelm who believe they are the smartest people in the world, but they're actually a town of fools, and there is just an entire literature of stories of the people of Chelm. So I don't know this particular story, but I would imagine
you'll like this one.
It's along that.
Yeah, and I think you're going to enjoy this one. This is a cute story, and I brought my props. Oh yeah, here we go. Some people say that Chelm is a village of fools. That may or may not be true. You can decide for yourself. Listen to what happened one Passover, when right before sundown, a poor, ragged stranger arrived and changed the village forever. You know what we say at Passover, the stranger proclaimed to the people. All who are hungry, come and eat. He looked around hopefully. Well, the people of Chelm all looked around too, hoping someone else would invite this hungry stranger in for Seder. Well, we hardly have enough food for ourselves, moaned Fagel. Oh, it's been a long winter, groaned Lila. Do your belly a favor and go to the next town, Shmuel pointed the way. Everyone nodded, but the stranger wouldn't budge. No food, but don't worry. And he pulled a stone from his pocket and held it up. I can make the most delicious matzo ball soup with this. All I need is a big cooking pot. Oh, impossible, said the people of Chelm. We're not fools, you know. We know it takes more than a stone to make matzo ball soup. Everyone knows you also need water. Well, so Mendel and Yankel ran and got the biggest pot, sloshing full of water. Meanwhile, the stranger made a fire. He placed the pot over the fire and dropped the stone in. Soon the water was boiling. Yenta peered in. I don't see any matzo balls. You expect miracles in seconds, said the stranger. He says, I need a ladle. What's a ladle? See? It's what you scoop your soup with, right? All right, so he needs a ladle. So Yenta hurried and got one. The stranger dipped the ladle into the pot. He poured a little into his cup and he took a sip. Oh, for me, a poor stranger, this is delicious, but for the good people of Chelm, it could use a little salt. Oh, no problem. Golda raced home and brought a salt shaker in no time. And the stranger sprinkled the salt in like there was no tomorrow, and he took another sip. Now this is good enough for a king, but not good enough for the people of Chelm. You don't happen to have any onions in town? You think we're uncivilized? Of course we have onions. And Moishe sent the children racing home. They hurried back with enough onions to make you cry for a week. Maybe two. Before you could blink, the stranger had a mountain of chopped onions. As he dumped them into the pot, here in Chelm, have you heard of garlic? You think we're fools? Of course we've heard of garlic. And Zadel sent the children rushing home again. They hurried back with enough garlic to choke a horse. Maybe two. The stranger hummed as he dropped the garlic into the pot. Oh, I suppose carrots are too common for you people of Chelm. Too common? Bah! Feet are common too, but does that mean we don't use them? Don't be foolish. In Chelm, we use our feet and our carrots. And so it went. Carrots, celery, chicken. What a soup! Oh, Yenta narrowed her eyes. Don't think we don't know what you're doing. Oh, what do you mean? Said the stranger. You said you'd make matzo ball soup from a stone. And she stood on her tiptoes so she could glare right into his eyeballs. You think we're fools? Of course not, said the stranger. Yenta put her hands on her hips. Then where are the matzo balls? Oh, what a wise woman, I almost forgot. Oh, that stone of mine makes the best matzo balls in the world, so big and heavy they're sit in your belly like rocks all 8 days of Passover. Guaranteed you won't need to eat for a week. I'll get them going right now. Whoa, 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 wait, exclaimed Rivka. Don't you know you're at Chelm? Don't you know we make matzo balls so light they almost fly? Impossible, said the stranger. I've never met people like you. So wise, so clever. And you even make matzo balls? The very best. The women all hurried home, and soon dozens, no, hundreds of matzo balls were plopping into the pot. The soup bubbled away, and everyone at Chelm gawked. Amazing. Whoo, that is some stone. The rabbi stroked his beard and nodded. It's a miracle right before our eyes. The stranger tried another sip. Oh, now this is good for the people of Chelm. It took 4 men to lug the pot into the synagogue, the only place where everyone would fit for the Seder. What a Seder! Plenty of wine and grape juice, piles of matzah, enough horseradish to make your toes curl for a year, maybe 2. When it was time for the meal, the stranger stood up. He clanged the ladle against the soup pot. Good people of Chelm, I have something important to say. A hush filled the room. The stranger spread his arms wide and proclaimed, all who are hungry, please come and eat. Some say that the people of Chelm are all fools, but that Passover, everyone had a full belly, even the poor stranger. Now, what's so foolish about that? I like that story.
That's a good story.
That's a good story.
A good story.
Because, the people started out with, we don't want you, it's too much trouble. Why don't you go to another town? And he stayed, and he said, I'm just going to make some stone soup. But what did he do? He got everybody to contribute onion, carrot, celery, chicken, and it ended up being fantastic soup. They even made the matzo balls. But it started with a stone in some water. So, question.
Yes.
Both books talk about the whole concept of come, hungry people.
Right. That's one of the things that's said in the Seder at the very beginning, that anyone who is hungry can come and join us. It's an open communal thing. It's part of the service. It's not something that is restricted to just Jewish people. If you are hungry, you may come and join us.
Okay.
It's a Jewish service, but it is
Tell
open
us about
to anyone.
a Seder of your past. When you were a little boy, what did your family do?
Oh, we had 25 people maybe.
Oh.
My grandparents, my parents, aunts and uncles. gathered around the table, and then there was a table hooked onto the table, and then it went to an L, and then it went to another L, and then in the other room there was the kids' table, and in a room after that there was the little kids' table.
Right.
Everybody contributed something. One of the aunts brought the brisket, and another one brought the soup, and another one brought the roast chicken. It was all very
mapped out.
Yeah, very mapped out. And my grandfather would start with the service. It's where did I put it? It's all done out of a book called a Haggadah. There's a lot of different versions of it, but you read out of the book, and the service goes through the book. My grandfather would start, and you go around the table, and everybody reads a little section of it.
Okay.
That's, I think, how a lot of families do it. Mm-hmm. Every family can do it their own way. There's no way it has to be done.
What's that plate you brought?
Things are laid out on a Seder plate. The things that have to be on there. And this one is a plate that my son made when he was very young.
Oh,
we have another one that's
nice.
A really neat one made in Europe, but there's a space on it for the haros that you mentioned, which is the apples and nut mixture, and a place on it for salt water, which represents the tears of slavery. A place on it for the horseradish root, which represents the bitterness of slavery. A place on it for a roasted egg, which represents springtime and the new birth. There are places on it for all these different things that are used symbolically throughout the meal.
So everything on the plate
everything has a meaning.
Has a meaning.
Yes.
I like that the salt. What was it? Salt water?
Salt water, little salt
and
water.
Herbs?
And yes, and
that
bitter herbs,
represents
horseradish.
the tears.
The tears and
slavery,
the bitterness.
Of slavery and bondage. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, it's nice. And so that's sitting in the middle of the table?
This is usually sitting in the middle of the table with all the little things on it, and it's got the matzah in the middle of it.
Okay, which are the crackers. Now, we were talking earlier that the youngest child at the table, the child who can talk,
right,
not the little baby, has some questions.
Right. Very early in the service, there's something called the 4 questions, where the youngest one who is able to do it asks these 4 basic questions, which is, why is this night different from all other nights? Why tonight do we eat unleavened bread? Why tonight do we eat this? Why tonight do we do this? Do we do that? And then the rest of the evening is spent answering those questions.
I love that.
And that also feeds into the Jewish tradition of asking questions, encouraging children, young people to ask questions. Questioning is very, very important.
Okay, so this is Passover, and it's a very important holiday.
Probably
in
one of the
Jewish
most
faith.
important.
I would say, yeah, a lot more important than Hanukkah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hanukkah may be more fun, but this is more important.
Right.
And this is fun.
And the youngest child at the table knows that they're going to be the ones who ask those questions, and it's a big deal. And I'm sure you remember when you were a little boy, you had to ask the questions. But you got through it.
I did.
And now you have the answers.
That's why my hair is now gray.
You know, we've had fun today for celebrating Passover, and I hope you enjoyed the 2 books. Let's see, we had the Matzo Ball Boy and Stone Soup with Matzoh Balls. And I hope that you will come back, because I'm going to bring you 2 more fun books. And until then, remember, you can go to YouTube and watch The Book Lady. So go and enjoy all the books I've brought to you. Until next time, bye-bye.